If you're watching this, you're probably wanting to know a little bit about who I am and why I spend so much of my life talking about trauma, brain injury, and healing. The truth is, I never planned this life. If you had met me 20 years ago, I never would have imagined I'd be sitting here talking to thousands of people about some of the hardest experiences of my life. But today, I'm grateful that I can. My childhood was fairly ugly. I grew up in an abusive home. I had an adverse childhood experience score of 9. I learned survival. I didn't get wired for connection. I got wired for protection. Living in constant fear of where your dad sneezes or coughs and you jump in a startle reflex. I became hypervigilant and I thought it was all completely normal. At the time, I didn't understand that trauma changes the brain. It changes your wiring and it changes what goes on inside of you. I started to just think that that's simply who I was. I ended up becoming a paramedic, and that job gave me meaning. I love being a paramedic. I love helping people. I found purpose. But in that job, I thought that I had escaped my past because I was doing well and I loved it. But little did I know that I was just repeating a lot of the trauma stuff that had happened inside of me. And then into a little further into adulthood, I found myself repeating abusive patterns like my father. I dated several people who, you know, were like him and had their own stuff. And I ended up getting into a relationship that was abusive. There was manipulation. I isolated myself, um, fear, and it just ended up being one of those people who everybody liked, but they didn't see what was going on behind closed doors. And the worst part for me was looking back, I thought he was wonderful. I didn't see all the red flags that people who weren't raised in chaos and abuse would have seen. And that led to one horrible night in June of 2006. That's the night that kind of changed the trajectory of my life. There was a domestic with a near fatal strangulation. And I very vividly remember him looking straight through me like I wasn't even there. And him saying, I don't know if I should kiss you or kill you. And that was before he put his hands around my throat. And it's one of the last things that I remember from the night. Little did I know what really happened inside of me that night. That led to this very long journey from 2006 to 2018. It was a long, long, hard journey. I started seeing doctor after doctor. Um, I had someone who looked at all of my medical records and saw that, like, I saw over 50 doctors in that time frame. I was given multiple diagnoses. I was told I have anxiety, depression. I started to feel like I was crazy. I had medicine after medicine after test after diagnosis after diagnosis. And I tried everything. And I got to the point that, like, I really felt hopeless. I battled with my mental health and had some attempts at unaliving myself. And I actually had a plan before June of 2019 that if they couldn't help me, if I couldn't find answers because I was at rock bottom. I just, people don't understand. The hardest part of that journey wasn't being injured. It was that I didn't understand what had happened to me. I didn't understand what changed inside of me. And I ended up finding a woman on social media. I had met a doctor by the name of Bill Smock in 2017 who just planted a seed. Words can change everything and give hope. He planted a seed by a chance meeting in a conference in Wisconsin. He talked to me about my story and basically just said, I think that you may have a brain injury. And it gave me hope. And I started researching. And in 2019, I found a woman online through social media and on her podcast and online that once I started hearing her story, it gave me hope because I thought her symptoms are very similar to mine. And although she had gotten her brain injury from a fall on the ice and hitting her head, the symptoms were the same. And the mechanism of a hit to the head was the same. And that is when, in June of 2019, after reaching out to her online, I ended up finding functional neurology. It changed my life from going there. And, at this point, when I went out there, I wasn't functioning as a paramedic. I wasn't driving. Um, my life was just very restricted, and I had lost who I was. And when I went out there, I had ended up being out there for 8 days. Um, and I did an intensive rehab, and I learned so much about my brain, these systems, the input that goes to the brain, and all of this stuff about trauma, what it does to nervous system regulation. And guess what? I realized that nothing was wrong with me, with me. And I realized that my brain was injured. My nervous system had learned to protect me. And everything finally started making sense. And guess what? It gave me hope. I was able to come back, and shortly after being out there for those 8 days, I was able to get back to work and start driving again. And I have been able to continue to do so since. And so what and why do I do it now? I speak about what happened, what I've learned, the gaps that those who work with survivors are missing and maybe just don't understand completely. I'm teaching, I'm doing my podcast, I'm writing a book, I'm starting a YouTube channel, um, and I'm building communities for survivors. And I'm also building survivors and their families, and then for professionals. And I'm coming along and helping survivors. I hope that I can be that place that someone else finds hope, like I did when I was searching for answers and found Amy. I'm also training professionals, I'm challenging systems, and people keep asking me, why do you keep telling your story? And it's because I want to be a person for change. I want to be that person for someone else. And so, for you survivors, I want to tell you that you are not broken. There is hope. I promise you, on the other side of understanding, it's a whole nother world. Healing begins when you have understanding. And for the families, for the loved ones of survivors, the person you love may not be choosing those behaviors. Those may be the invisible injuries that no one has explained to you or them. And for you professionals, one conversation can change someone's life. I've lived it. You don't have to have all the answers for them, but you can just simply plant a seed. And that may be able to open up the doors to everything for them. For years, I kept asking, what's wrong with me? And a lot of people ask that as well. The better question turned out to be, what happened to me? And what happened inside my brain because of it? That question changed my life. And my hope is that this channel help changes yours too. Thank you for taking the time to hear my story. Healing begins with understanding. So I'll see you in the next video.